The internet's not on yet, though. All right, now the item number 4 is public comments on agenda items only. The meeting is open for public comments as to agenda items. If you can have a comment you want as to agenda items, please step forward, state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Any public comments on agenda items? Ma'am?
Good morning, Council. My name is Barbara Sprague. I'm at 611 Triangle Court Southwest in Sunset Beach. This is about the market. You've heard many residents who love the market for many, many reasons, and of which I agree with, many of which I agree with. I want to give you some comments from the perspective of one of the artists in the market, and I'm one of the artists. I cannot hold down a full-time job right now because the reason I moved to Sunset Beach is to take care of my parents. My father has dementia. My mother passed in November, and I'm trying to see my dad through. So I've got to fit things between the raindrops. The market allows me to do that. I get to leave at 2 o'clock and go to see my dad. If I have to go, get called from an emergency, which I had to do last week, they're aware of it and they're very good with me leaving. If I had a full-time job, I wouldn't be able to do that. I'd be fired in a minute. So just that, sorry about. No employer would allow me to take that kind of time off. The market ends at 2 p.m. I said that. My dad is 86 with dementia. I also said that. Sometimes I'm doing very well at the market, sometimes not so much. It depends on weather, it depends on the tourists, it depends on a lot of things, a lot of variables. The price that we pay for our booth is very reasonable. It allows us, artists and produce people, to continue to do this and take that risk to make that kind of money. We pay sales tax, we contribute to the town in many ways, many other ways besides that as well as being ambassadors for Sunset Beach. I ask you to factor in the artists and the farmers when deciding upon a fair fee for use of the park for this market. If you truly want this market to remain, it has to make sense for everybody. It has to make sense for the town, the organizers, the artists, and the farmers, and the community. I mean, the town is the community. So I'm wondering, what will warrant the extra fees? How will the fees be utilized? Those are my questions. And does the market's impact on the park warrant that extra fee amount? I mean, I notice the ladies who run the market are really amazing to work with. They kind of juggle what you guys want, what we want, and you know, we can be kind of demanding too. So there's a lot of variables, a lot of personalities in the mix, and they juggle that very, very well. They're very good at what they do. They also clean up after us at the market. They go around with a trash bag and pick up all our trash. We try to be very cognizant of what's going on there and respectful, and they are super respectful, and they keep us in line. We get emails weekly on what you want of them and what we should do to rise to that, and I like to think we're compliant. So I just want to address really quickly after Mr. Serrato's comments about recusal and what I read in the Beacon last week, which really the front, you know, the article in the Beacon. And after reading Mr. Booley's comments as quoted, I had to ask myself if with an attitude like that, would the market have even continued under the Merchants Association's care or feeding or whatever? Because he had such a cavalier attitude about it, kind of ruffled my feathers. I thought with an attitude like that, it probably would have gone the way of the Paddle Fest, which is fizzled out. I mean, and where are those funds that you just spoke of? The funds, if the Merchants Association is dormant, what happened to the funds, and who decided that it would be dormant? I'm not a merchant, so I don't have that. I'm not in the Merchants Association, but as an outsider looking in, as a taxpayer, and as a sales taxpayer, I have those questions that I think we all probably want to have answered. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Thank you. I have to run.
Sir?
My name is Mark Kaplan, 101 Main Street, Sunset Beach. there seems to be more of an argument for whether we should or should not have the farmer's market. And I really think that's ancillary to the real issue. And the real issue is, should the town lease property for use by a profit-generating corporation? And that's one of the primary questions. And if so, should that fee be as low as it has been? I'm not going to get into the arguments of that it was with the Business and Merchants Association and no longer is, and in those personalities. But as a businessman, I don't think it's proper for a $2 million plus piece of property owned by the taxpayers and maintained by the town and also paid for with state taxpayer funds in the form of grants to be used for a profit-generating corporation to generate income. If you're going to do this, set up a 501c3 nonprofit. Charge whatever fees you think are appropriate. And that 501c3 generates income from this market and then gets with the town and sits down with the town and says, we have this money, what would you like us to do with it to benefit the town of Sunset Beach in the form of feeding the firemen or feeding the EMTs or doing something positive for the town? And that way, no money is going into anyone's pocket, because that's where the central issue is and has been with me. I happen to think the market's fine. I don't like the fact that an LLC generating a profit does that by leasing town property and then releasing it to somebody else. And I just think that's incorrect. And I think that is poor stewardship of the asset for which the council has the responsibility for stewardship. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hearn?
Charlie Nern, 647 Oyster Bay Drive. I agree that we should have the market here. Now, what the proper fee should be, I don't know. I know there's been some really high fees suggested. I think for each occurrence, a $50 permit fee and a $50 use fee would be reasonable, but it has to be used, has to be charged to everybody. And I'm talking about per event, which would be as the market weekly. The Merchants Association was given not 100,000, but 140,000 to promote tourism. I want to know if the money's been used. If I recall correctly, when the council gave the Merchants Association the money, there was supposed to be some accounting. I've never seen or heard anybody talk about accounting for this money. The park's not supposed to be a money-making entity for the town. It wasn't why the land was bought. And two last things, the LLC followed the rules that the council put in place for use of the park. I don't believe that we would have a market use this year without them. And someone suggested that the reason the Merchants Association folded is because the LLC took over the market. I don't believe that for a minute, and if you have any common sense, you won't believe it either. Stormwater, it would cost roughly $2.7 million to take care of the stormwater. That's a big issue that affects everybody in town. Ms. Parker put it on, suggested it as an item for this year's budget, and y'all failed to put it on the agenda. This project can be done over 2 to 5 years, even longer. So it wouldn't be like putting the money out right now. The town has $6 million. The reason we save that money is to use it for projects like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am?
I wasn't going to speak, but after conversation when you guys were in the back. My name's Mary Zlotnick. I do not live in Sunset Beach. I live in Pawleys Island, so I don't know if I'm, okay, because I am a vendor at the market, and I do pay sales use tax. So after having much discussion, I really value the Merchants Association and the 4 ladies who did the LLC and formed this market, this vibrant market for the community and for all the members. And we were discussing that it needs to be mutually beneficial for the vendors, the community, the businesses. And it seems like that's where the rub has become. So I did suggest to form a cooperative of some sort where the vendors are involved and you have business members, you have liaison with the city and discuss a mutually beneficial situation for all. And it seemed as though it fell on a lot of ears and people were agreeable to that. So that's what I am putting forward, is to form some sort of nonprofit inclusive of business members, other nonprofits, and the vendors, and to give back to the community after whatever fees were paid out. So that's just a suggestion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
Good morning. My name is Ellen Nelson. I live at 704 Shoreline Drive in Sunset Beach. I am a vendor at the farmers market. Just want to also reiterate, I think the most important thing is the fact that we're opening the dialogue and having communication, which we haven't had in the past, to even know the sides, to know your particular standpoint and the reasons you make the decisions that you do, and the reasons that maybe the LLC made the decisions they made. And there's still more fact-finding that needs to come out, and that will unfold. But I do think there's been tremendous support by the community for the farmers market. I never thought you all were in danger of saying that we couldn't have a farmers market, and we appreciate that. The idea of the conflict being a for-profit versus a nonprofit is certainly probably the elephant in the room, or not so much the elephant in the room. But I would say this, as a Parks and Recs major in college, the park is designed to be used by all. And unfortunately, we lose sight of that in the sense that there's a large part of our community that lives here in Sunset Beach that cannot even go to the park due to health issues, concerns. And let's face it, guys, we are an older community. We are here. We've earned the right to be here, and we take that very seriously. But we feel as vendors, a lot of us, that we need to establish some sort of communication with you all to where we can work hand in hand and really reach out to those members and bring them to the park and share Sunset Beach with them. They get closed off, and that's what we're interested in doing, is giving back to the community. If it's very simply forming a co-op or an LLC, any excess money that is generated after the fees are paid for said rental of the park, then they go back to supporting local issues, whether it's the Turtle Association or the group, or whether it's helping. I know the Boy Scouts were getting ready to, from the last meeting, do some work. If we get behind as a community and we take that profitable income and we use that to give back to Sunset, that's what we're all about, is forming a community where we all can open this dialogue, everybody take off their armor and let's come together and work for Sunset Beach, promote Sunset Beach, and be the goodwill ambassadors that we have been and will continue to be.
Thank you. Other public comment? Ms. Harris?
Jan Harris, 206 North Shore Drive, Sunset Beach. I have to say I'm very pleased to hear some of the comments that are being made this morning. It looks like there's positive movement toward a satisfactory solution. I agree with every word that Mark Kaplan said to you folks. And my comments are not about the market at all. My comments are about whether or not our taxpayer owned park should be used by private LLCs. I personally think it should not. But if you do allow that, if you continue to allow that, I hope you will consider the cumulative impacts that allowing that could have on the town. Because once you allow one to do it, how are you going to deny the next one? And it's possible under our rules right now that you could have some type of similar activity to the farmer's market in that park every single day of the week. So I hope when you are considering what you want to do with our park, and I say our park, please consider the cumulative impacts of your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, ma'am?
Good morning. Juanita Adams, Stokes Court, Sunset Beach. Change of topic. Council, I look at the agenda and I see there's a discussion for an ordinance for premises to be kept clean. And I just ask you what's kept you so long from even thinking or considering if there is an ordinance. To my recollection, it's not being maintained. And if you're considering it, please do it yesterday. Some of the things that I'm going to bring to your attention are 3 pieces of property that are along Shoreline Drive, and this is not just a matter of tall grass. These are houses where trees and vines are growing through the windows. Mr. Serrato, one of these properties is within shot of your house, which I believe was up on auction, and what they did probably a year ago was started maintaining it, and the difference in that house now and today is a year ago, the door was on one hinge, and now the door is gone. And the third is on Great Oak Circle. Besides the fact that the grass is above my eyes, there are tires, there are debris on the front lawn. Their laundry is on the front lawn, as well as their underwear. If council is going to have a, and oh, by the way, my property, although it's on Stokes Court, my property is not for sale. My concern is for all the houses that are around these houses, if in fact they are trying to be sold and they are beautifully maintained, how does one sell a piece of property when even the upkeep on the exterior is not being maintained? And also, what is the incentive for me to maintain my property when these properties are not? I ask council to please make sure that this ordinance that you have on the agenda is not only passed, but passed with enforcement and soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? None appearing. I'm sorry. Okay.
Karen Joseph, 915 Sandpiper Bay Drive, Sunset Beach. I think you've heard a number of very positive comments this morning regarding the park rules and the waterfront market in particular. I hope that you will take the time to consider what I hear as an outreach from people who are willing to meet with, perhaps it's the town administrator, perhaps it's the mayor, I'm not sure, to possibly come up with positive solutions that will benefit everyone. I'm sure that our council would tell us if it is discriminatory to not permit LLCs to use the park versus nonprofits. Those are all particulars that I'm sure Mr. Richardson can assist with. But perhaps the best course of action right now is no action, but rather to create some environment where business officials, vendors, community members, and the town can sit together to try to come up with the most positive program for everyone. As I've said before, the park has become the center of our community, which is a wonderful thing to see. There are people in the park every day. The town administrator is the one who issues permits. I know that she would never issue permits where the park was being utilized by an organization every day of the week. She just wouldn't do that. So I'm not concerned about that. But, you know, it's not always all about money. So I would encourage you to think about what your course of action is. And let's try to get a positive conclusion for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yeah.
Good morning. Ruth Reynolds, 703. Okay. There you go. Ruth Reynolds, 703 North Shore Drive, Sunset Beach. I am totally against any groups using our park for profit. Any functions held in the park should be for nonprofit only. And this has been proven by Anita August and a group of volunteers that held a function. It was fun and it was entertaining and enjoyed by all. And I'm not sure, in my opinion, that the market, as far as it could be permitted as a special event. When I went back to basics and looked up the definition for special event, it happens occasionally, once a year or twice a year at the most. So I'm not sure the market qualifies for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other, sir? But there's nobody else.
Anything on the agenda, but I just.
Well, this is the only time for the agenda comments.
Okay, because I wanted to just say something positive about.
It's really got to address the comments on the agenda.
I'd love to speak.
You already
So-
spoke.
Not different than. I have no problem.
I understand that. I understand. What,
I have no problem.
anybody have any problem?
Go ahead.
No.
No. Go ahead.
Mayor, you make the ruling.
Go ahead.
Thank you. One of our officers in the town of Sunset Beach, Officer Lee Hall, got together with a whole bunch of us and has put together a program for which the police department is participating, the fire department is participating, Fletcher over at Dave's is participating, the pier is participating, and the market is participating. It's a youth fishing day. It's on April the 25th. We're doing this because we want to find something for the youth to do other than some of the things that they always do, and to potentially teach them fishing. And through this effort, the police and the fire got involved in this, and we're all going to do this together. The pier is going to provide free fishing and feed the people, and people are going to bring stuff. So We just thought that you needed to know, and I'll get you a sign.
April
but
5?
We just thought August the 25th.
August, I'm sorry.
We just thought
I
that,
wrote down April.
that the town needed to know that we care about our youth, and we're doing something to help the youth, and the police department's helping us, and the fire department. We're all working together.
Well, we'll definitely get some information on it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? None appearing. Let's move to the next item of agenda, which is old business, and I moved 5F up to, well, we've already we moved 5A, correct? We've done that.
Continued it.
Oh, continued, okay. So this is now 5F we're dealing with, and Councilman Corbett, you had a comment with
Well,
regard?
you said Carol wanted to say something.
Do you want to say something with regard to it?
Well, I would suggest that there is no way for us to make any decisions today without getting legal opinions on several items. We cannot address the park rules, and I'd like an answer quickly, because I think it's important that we address the park rules quickly. Number one, can we or can we not legally, because we received a part of grant, differentiate between profit and nonprofit organizations? That's question number one. Can we limit the number of events in the park, either profit or nonprofit, per week, depending on the size of the event? I have a question concerning taxes received by vendors at the market. Do they report sales tax for point of sale so that Sunset Beach gets the benefit of those sales? I'm saying yeses, as opposed to reporting it back where you're organized or incorporated. You know what, we've already broken the rules today. That's one of these things that drives me crazy, you know, and I wish you were a little more flexible on this. I've tried to have that done for a very long time. You sit in the audience and you're biting your tongue because you have something that's important to share, and we ought to be a little more flexible in allowing people to do that. I realize things can get out of hand,
What you
but
want to
that's
share?
why we have such a
what you wanna
capable
share-
mayor.
What you want to share is important.
Okay, what I want to share is I pay sales and use tax, it goes back to special, there's each month, I report my sales and use tax, and the money goes back to North Carolina and Brunswick County.
But not Sunset Beach.
I don't know how that.
Well, excuse me, could you, people can't, people on the.
All right, so my question is, are we getting credit in Sunset Beach for a sale that's made in the Sunset Beach Park?
Yes, we are assessed a tax. We have to provide to the state of North Carolina a sales and use tax ID number based on where we generate taxes that day, whether we are in Southport, which is a different community. We would have a different tax schedule, and then factored into that is going to be your city percentage, the county, and the state tax.
Okay, so they do look at point of origin.
They do, and they look at point of origin, and they also they bill us, or we pay monthly based on that, so.
Thank you. And my last question, legal question, is can we differentiate between residents and non-residents? Until we get the answers to those questions, it's very difficult for us to come up with rules that would take into consideration the different events that we have.
Susan?
When you say residents versus non-residents, can you clarify? Is that Sunset Beach, non-Sunset Beach? Is it North Carolina versus?
Sunset Beach residents, Sunset Beach Park. Can we differentiate between Sunset Beach residents and non-Sunset Beach residents in submitting permits and getting permit approval?
We already have that answer, because the part of grant is a state grant. Ugh. The internet is the mic. We already have an answer to that question, because it is a state grant. The part of grant was a state grant generated by every community in the state of North Carolina. You cannot discriminate between resident and non-resident. It's no different than the beach. It's public trust. You can't differentiate between whether it's Sunset Beach visitor or a non-Sunset Beach visitor.
Okay, and on the issue of profit, for-profit, nonprofit?
You're looking for that answer today?
Sure.
I'm not prepared to give you that
Grady,
answer
come on.
today.
Spit it out.
But I will do my best to get back to you on the
Grady, there's
questions.
another question that's going to pop up too with regard to resident and non-resident, not just with regard to the issuance of permits, but with the amount of permit fees. You know, can a resident and non-resident have different charges with regard to the permits?
Also,
Very good question.
Profit, nonprofit.
So when we get the answer to that, we're really not that far apart, all of us sitting up here, in terms of where we think we're going. And Pete, you had the right idea when I didn't have the forms available when I did that first or initial thing. But with the proper forms, they do need some adjusting. We need to adjust the language concerning signs, and I'd like to get some consensus among the people here that the town should have the right to adjust the ability of somebody to place a sign on one of the 2 or 3 places that we have available depending on the event. So that just because somebody has, and I'm going to be very specific on that. For example, there's somebody who does yoga in the park every Saturday and they put up a sign on that park. When possibility came in, that lady was at the time not willing to move her sign away to allow the possibility sign to go up for a major one-day event. We need to be able to make those decisions. The town administrator should be able to make those decisions as the town administrator. You know, Susan, there's no need to respond. I'm just saying that we need to adjust the language to make sure that we mention signs in both the permit, there's a permit application, we mention it in rules. It's not consistent with our sign ordinances. I want to make sure that it's consistent and we have the flexibility to adjust who uses those maps. Okay?
There's, in talking about the park itself, the town park itself, there's 3 aspects to what we're talking about. It's Chapter 99 of our ordinances, which are town park regulations. The second aspect is a special event policy that was established and adopted. And the third is a fee schedule. All those are part of the same thing. But when we talk about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, bear in mind I don't think you want to put the fee schedule as part of the ordinance because the ordinance requires publication and public hearing and expense. So you want to put major things in the park regulations because that's an ordinance. The policy, it doesn't require a public hearing and publication, and nor does the fee schedule require publication and a public hearing. So when we do it, you got to keep those 3 things in mind. But those are 3 things that we talk about are going to have to be changed or impacted somehow. Peter?
John, you gave up the mic a minute ago. Is this
I'll
okay?
continue to give it up for a while.
Jan Harris brought up a very good point, and other people have mentioned it before. Council has talked about it as well. I've always been uncomfortable with the guidelines for issuance of permits in the fact that it doesn't, I don't think, give us teeth, and Susan and I have talked about this, doesn't give us, meaning the town, teeth in order to determine what is an appropriate activity to take place in our park. It is all of our park. I had drafted some wording which I'd like to see Grady also review so that, again, we could have more teeth in it. And my wording was, as an engineer, was written, the town reserves the right to disallow the use of the park for any activity that is not in accordance with the best interests of the Sunset Beach town citizens and consistent with family-oriented park activities. This would help us eliminate having farmers market or merchants market every day of the week. That would not be in the best interest of our citizens and the use of the park. We're in a litigious society. We don't want to have one person say they're going to sue us because we're not going to let them have an activity. We need to have some wording in there, Grady, that gives us that teeth, or at least something to stand on.
Pete, when we get the answers to the legal questions, I mean, there were a couple of things that we ought to be considering, and I would bring that back up hopefully in 2 weeks, incorporating a lot of the language you used, but there are other concepts we need to think about. And one possibility is to, charge by the hour. It's something that we haven't thrown out, but that may be the answer for certain types of events. We could put something in that says we don't permit more than 2 high-impact events a week. So these are things that I will throw out there. as I said, when I get the answers on that, then again, you know, there's such a difference between events. You have a 1 hour, you know, yoga lady doing something, and I don't want her to have to pay, you know, $50 to do this 1 hour class for 12 people. I don't think that's appropriate. So to come up with rules that equally apply to everybody but doesn't mess up any particular entity is my goal, and it's not easy. Is what I'm suggesting. So maybe you and I can work on this again when we get some answers in the next couple of weeks.
Before we go any further, one of the things that ought to be addressed is, and I recognize, and I assume it's on purpose, he's remained silent, is Mr. Serrato's request that he be recused from discussion with regard to the park rules. We really ought to rule on that and act on that.
Oh, we already have.
Didn't you do that last week?
No, we did that with regard to, what was the other one now? The brunch bill.
Brunch bill.
Actually.
Thank you.
I thought we ruled on two things,
Did we?
maybe not in public, but.
Well, no, I mean, I think last week, well, the last meeting, I cannot recall if it was as to both issues or not. It was not. And then the discussions I've had with respect to council and conflicts of interest and when's the time to recuse and the procedure by which to do so depends upon when things start to take shape in a substantive fashion with respect to discussions. If council is prepared to make a decision today, which it does not sound like it is, on park policies and rules and amendments, I think there's been questions raised with Mr. Corbett as well as Mr. Serrato. I think general discussions that Mr. Serrato is wishing to recuse himself from, I don't think there's ground sufficient. From what I've heard, there's not even a consensus on what you all are going to even look to revise and whether the law even allows to do so. I mean, I'd like for Mr. Larkin to send me his draft language. You know, as a town attorney, I got to look at things such as the Constitution and free speech and the right of assembly and not discriminating. And then we got the state tax funds and the Partif grant. So all of that, I don't believe there's grounds for Mr. Serrato to not engage in discussions. Nothing requires him to discuss things if he doesn't want to. I mean, I have no idea if he even has anything he wishes to comment about, but just general discussions on things that are just kind of...
Well, my concern now is, from what I understand you're saying, is that we don't need to take action on his request right now.
I would prefer probably for you to go ahead and take action that declines, or, you know, you make a motion as to whether or not to accept his desire to recuse himself from any discussions. If that's denied because there's not sufficient grounds to do so, there's nothing that requires Mr. Serrato to still talk if he doesn't want to on the discussion.
No, I understand that we can. All right. Well, then, he's made the request that he be recused with regard to the discussion of the park regulations. Is there a motion on it?
Yes, there is. Sorry, Rich, with all due respect, I personally don't think there's any conflict of interest, and I move that Rich not be excused from a general discussion or vote, rather, on park rules and regulations.
Well, now, okay. A vote, there's, as I understand it right now, it's just whether or not his motion is just as to discussions and I guess future votes. I don't think that we can get to part B of his desire not to take part in any votes because there's nothing substantive to vote on at this time. We're just talking about general discussions.
You just said he's not obligated to discuss anything.
Correct.
All right, so I respect that
Right.
he's not obligated, but I move that he not use conflict of interest grounds as reasons to not participate
In the
a
discussions.
discussion.
And then when we come later to a vote on any actual rules and policies the town wishes to implement, that we will then need to take up that issue with Mr. Serrato potentially and Mr. Corbett potentially. But at this point, it's too early to tell. But go ahead.
Rich, weren't you going to bring up, though, one of you was going to bring up an issue of, and I have no idea if this is feasible or not, but apparently the Merchants Association still has an outstanding balance remaining in their account. I don't know that we ever got a full accounting I thought it was $105,000 that we had given the Merchants Association. 115? 150, I didn't think it was that much.
And right now,
In
there's
any
20.
event, I don't know that we've ever gotten an itemized list from them saying that they had spent that amount of money on promoting the
Okay,
town,
all right.
as was agreed to by the town when it gave them
All right, well, that.
funding, and
that-
they still have monies remaining. Can we look at that issue about whether or not we can go to them to collect back some monies if in fact they still have a
That may
balance?
be-
and
Isn't
did
that an
not
item
spend
for a
it?
future
that-
agenda?
Yeah, what we're dealing with right now, you made a motion with regard to his request for recusal. That's the issue right now,
Put
for
that on
discussion.
your list.
For discussion with regard to the
A
rules.
motion with respect to his desire to be recused from general discussion on the park and park policies.
That's the motion, that he not be recused for that purpose.
And Mr. Serrato cannot participate in the vote.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so he's not recused from participating in the discussion.
Correct.
Okay. And we'll leave the vote issue till we get to a point where we have to take a vote. All right, anybody else have anything? Well, we had, there had been a number of suggestions circulated with regard to changes to the park rules. Councilwoman Scott's suggestion is that it be carried to a point in time where a number of questions, answers to a number of questions be received. Do I have a
But
motion?
I will tell you that in the interim, I can do a couple of different versions depending on what the answers are.
people don't have
And
to
maybe
sit
I'll
on
work on that with Pete.
People don't have to sit on their hands. I mean, they can still continue to march. But any action or further discussion as a council on the issue of the park rules or amendment to the park rules, the special event policy, the park regulations, or the fee schedule, that's the issue I'm talking about. That would be, we want to carry that till, do we have to take a formal action to carry it?
I'd put a motion that we wait or table it to the next meeting, so we find
September
out the
5,
answers
yeah.
from
All
Grady.
right.
Mayor,
I'd like to
Mayor,
make a
I'm
quick
sorry.
comment.
in,
Go ahead.
in the meantime, Grady obviously didn't see my half a dozen suggested comments, and I don't send them to you because I don't want to get a bill for it. I'm trying to be funny, but I'm serious. I'm serious. I want my questions to go through our town administrator, and her and Lisa were copied in.
But there's no agreement yet on all
No.
of that. I think it's premature, Pete.
Well, but at some point in time, you've asked some questions, I've asked some questions that are addressed in our amendments to the section ordinance 99. We need to have Grady look at things like that.
But we're not ready for him to look at it because there are going to be a whole bunch of things. At the point that we revise section 99 and we change our ordinances, that should go to him for legal review at that point. But let's
Let me
first agree on language
suggest-
that we even want to send him.
Let me suggest this, that anybody has a question that needs an answer with regard to it, submit it to Susan, who will then forward them to Grady for the answers. And he'll submit the answers to the questions that you might have. Not necessarily the language that you might want to use, but the answers to the questions.
But Bob, real quick, we have been sending stuff to Lisa now.
Well,
And so we're going to push that off to the next meeting?
No, let's do it now, between now and the next meeting.
Yeah, can the town council get what Lisa's gotten from the other councilmen?
Well, the difficulty in doing that, the reason why I suggested it be funneled through a employee is you don't want to get involved in violations of open public meetings where you're exchanging communication between council people that the public doesn't have necessarily access to. I mean, they would eventually if they asked for it, but that it's not done in a public forum. Whereas if you communicate with the employee, they assemble it, it's not a violation of the open public meetings because you're not communicating with each other.
But I agree with some of the people that spoke today. We should meet, two of us as a council, should meet with people on the other side and to see what their side of the stories are. So therefore, maybe those questions could be sent to Lisa and Susan for discussion.
Well, one of the suggestions was that there be a
Co-op.
yeah, co-op or a committee or of interested, I don't want to use the word term factions, but interested parties. What's the council's feeling on that?
You know, let us come up with rules. We've dealt with this. We've heard from a lot of people. I'm not sure I see the benefits at this point, honestly, of a committee. We've not had good luck with them in the past. Where everybody is free to receive emails and comments, you know, and talk to you on the phone about all of this. I mean, believe me, your concerns will be heard and considered, but I would not establish a committee at
Well,
this
if
point.
anything else, just allow them to send their comments
Of
to
course.
Susan Parker. So therefore, at least Susan can look at your opinions and your ideas, and together maybe we come to an agreement.
No question about that, and also, I don't want to muck up your email boxes, but the council members individually are receptive to receipt of any kind of communication with regard to it from the public. All right. Then that will be carried to the September 5th. Further discussion will be carried, and possible action will be carried to the September 5th meeting. The next item is the discussion concerning.
I didn't get my
I'm sorry,
2
John.
cents.
I'm sorry, you're right.
All right. And I'm down from 2 cents probably to about half a cent now. These are big questions for us to resolve. There are a lot of issues through here that have been alleged, sort of the origin of the for-profit LLC, the existence of the Merchants Association, what is its status now, why did they give up, why are they not running the park at this point in time. I think, you know, we as a council need to keep some broad measures as to what are we trying to do? What are we trying to convey about Sunset Beach? And particularly, what are we trying to convey about how we want our park to be used and what we want it to be used for. In August 2012, when the park was being built, a survey was done, and there was a question on the survey about the passive public use of the park, and 16 different areas and categories got raised in that. And so all of those categories put together meant that the park is intended for everyone, for anyone, for our pleasure in a broad range of areas. So we should keep that stuff, and that positive things in mind, that what we are doing promotes the park and does things that our residents, our neighbors, and our visitors want and will use. If we're going to talk about money at some point, it's why are we trying to create a revenue stream? What are we going to use it for? There are a lot of other issues that have been raised today that need to be addressed, and I look forward to that, and thank everybody for their interest and their concern, both in terms of how the park is being run now, how the activities are being conducted now, and what they want to do in the future. Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is 5B, discussion concerning amendment of ordinance 93.01, premises to be kept clean, notice of violation. Hiram?
And Tom's not here. I think he's the designated planning board member. We said, oh, I'm sorry. You're right, you are.
This, we've had,
Right, you are.
Dustin's gonna come up here with me on this one.
we've had,
That's okay, Greg is saying.
we've had public hearing on this, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Have we had, we've had public hearing on it, haven't we?
Well,
Do we need a public hearing if it's
That's-
not an ordinance?
well, no, it's
I
an
mean, if
ordinance in the
It's an
town
ordinance.
codes, it's not a land use ordinance, so it doesn't follow the land use statutory requirements of 2-week notice, yada, 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 so, but as far as
I thought,
whatever our internal regulations were, we're still hammering out this language, I didn't know.
okay, go ahead.
Does this need to be set up for a public hearing?
It's my understanding town ordinances don't, if it gets unanimous on the first reading, it's,
I did have a number of questions.
but this will be the second reading,
I
so
sat
if you
down
go.
with Hiram earlier in the week and you corrected.
We had public comments at the last council meeting
That's what I
on this
thought.
topic.
The only thing on page 2 at the bottom, it will not be picked up, just say they will not be picked up, because you've got, just change it to they on the, next to the last line.
I did.
He did. The word "they" is.
They, I'm sorry, it's small t, that's all.
Oh, yeah, oh, sorry.
That's what I, gotta figure out my own linings.
It's supposed to be lowercase.
So, I'm good with this.
Me too.
I move we adopt the changes to Chapter 93 entitled Health and Sanitation Nuisances of the Code of Ordinances as listed in Agenda Item 5B,
Effective today?
effective today.
Any other discussion? The motion is to adopt the ordinance as presented. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The
Thank you.
next item on the agenda.
Good job, guys.
Just as a point, Mayor, Dustin and Hiram took quality time to sit down with Carol and I in a relaxed setting without wasting a lot of, or spending a lot of the citizens' time. Thank them for that. And it's a great way to get a consensus.
Thank you. The next item is the stormwater management plan discussion and possible action.
Bob, real quick, I have to excuse myself for this.
You want to take a little break?
All right, take a 5-minute break. It's now,
That's good to me.
well, we convene at 11 o'clock.
I have a 3 o'clock meeting this afternoon. I
We're
hope
gonna
we
be
can
out here by 3
make that.
o'clock.
3 o'clock, if we're not out of here long before that, I'm going to slip my throat.
Good, Roger.
Yeah, just say, well, first, I don't need the, I don't need the postal. No, I know, that's why it's a conversion, and it was stated in the minutes during the budget session, so this is not new. So that won't make any difference or not.
Well, the reason I asked you to do it today is, I've got, I'd like her
Mark, when you're finished.
My wife says she can hear you talking in sessions like this. That's why I wouldn't scrape your mic on YouTube. I'm cold.
You were shocked by that run.
A what?
You shocked me by that run.
I'm going to wait for 2 years.
That's fine, the real way, I'm not gonna run.
In fact, she haunts me every day still.
Why didn't you do it?
I would have run for mayor, but somebody else already filed papers. Yeah, who would? That's the worst job in the town.
Right in.
He doesn't have a basis to recuse. I mean,
Well,
it's
I mean, it's
not
not
there.
really me.
The,
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about
Oh, I'll back you up. Because I can't turn around staff reports like that in 3 days.
There's no book we're gonna vote on.
Well, I did, I wrote a staff report. I'll pull it. I'll show you.
My values, my righteous values are being questioned.
No, I did.
They weren't doing it for free.
Because it says, I know I'm right. Yeah. Yeah.
the ladies work for free, so if you want to do a cooperative, just.
All that hard work. All that hard work. All that hard work.
Do all work for free, and it's not just the 8 hours during the
Hey,
course.
hey guys, hey guys. We're beyond the time.
What I always
Who's wearing a sweater today?
Well, I always wear a sweater. Yeah, I know better.
All right, I'm going to, we're reconvening the August 15th, 2017 Town Council meeting, Sunset Beach. The next item on the agenda is Stormwater Management Plan discussion and possible action.
At the last meeting, well, I'll say Michael Norton is here in the audience to answer any questions. You've already had a presentation. You've had a copy of the presentation. Staff is seeking both an adoption of the plan and permission to place the ad in the paper for the stormwater manager field tech position. Now, adoption of the plan is not adopting the funding part of it, it's adoption of the plan. My thought is that once we bring the stormwater manager on, they will develop a business plan with associated costs and needs back to the council for consideration. But I can't do anything until you adopt the plan.
All right, and I was chastised because we were supposed to do it the last time, and Susan wasn't here to chastise me then.
So nothing at this point
Has been done.
cost us anything?
Correct. In fact, even the position itself is not a new position, it's a conversion of an existing GIS planner position. The range for that is between 43.9 and 65.9. And as you can see by the description, it is a fairly complex position regarding stormwater management and water quality. Oh, no, we need to do this every year.
It's from now on, it's
It's permanent
maintaining our
staff.
stormwater system.
43 to 65.9.
65.9 or 63.9?
65.9.
Let's deal with the first issue is the stormwater plan. We're going to adopt the stormwater plan. Anybody have any discussion or a motion to adopt the stormwater plan?
You know,
My question again on that, if we adopt the stormwater plan, is that committing us now to pay for everything at some point?
No, just as I mentioned previously,
Okay.
it allows me to advertise for the position, to bring on the manager, to develop the business plan, to present to you what resources are needed to go forward. And in each and every year, the plan or whatever project come before the council
I can hear you.
during the budget process.
Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion?
well, hang on for a second. So we really, my concern has been that we didn't know what the useful life of the equipment was, whether or not we'd be better off hiring out those jobs or keeping it in-house, and I still don't have an answer on that. And my only concern with moving ahead with a position now is we haven't made those determinations. However, as Susan just said, if we're going to do anything in the next year, as we get more information, if we don't have somebody on board thinking about it, it'll never happen in the next year. And I think universally the town understands that this is a major problem and a major issue that needs addressing.
Do we
So-
talk about the qualifications of the position before we approve the plan or after we approve the plan?
Don't,
I question whether
the job
a fellow
description.
with a GED or high school education has all the engineering and
Yeah.
other skill sets required to do what your position described. You've got a very complex position with, seems to be a lot of skill sets that need to be in there that, in my mind, probably takes more than a GED equivalent or a high school education.
that's a good point.
Use Grady's. No, it works, 'cause
It
you
works
slam
when
the,
you slam
you
it.
slam it down.
Both Mr. Norton and Wes McLeod reviewed this job description. It was based on several that I modeled after currently in the state of North Carolina. As you know, with job descriptions, you cannot require a degree above what they need, i.e. for my position only asks for a bachelor's degree, but it says a master's degree preferred.
Yeah.
Because you can't defend that requirement.
Right. That's correct.
In addition, for any engineering work that we'll require, we will
What was that?
outsource to a consultant for the design. That's not, the design of the projects is not part of this job. This is more of a stormwater manager.
Okay, and so, to be argumentative, you know, we're saying that the GED equivalent or high school diploma does include somebody that has the engineering principles and practices for surface water and drainage systems, planning, design, construction, maintenance, and operations to oversee that activity.
Yes.
To do the project management, cost analysis, and budgeting. To do the surveying principles and have the equipment to do the water quality monitoring protocol, you know, on and on through there. That, and my question is that really sufficient? That's all, you know.
tying in with what Susan just said, what this job description appears to me to be allowing is somebody's actual lifetime experiences, field experiences and exposures to be considered, but they would have to have at least a minimum of a GED, but that life experiences would be applicable.
And we would send them to the state of North Carolina stormwater, the certificate that you received.
Yeah, stormwater management and repair.
So they don't have to come in with these skill sets. We will teach them and give them those skill sets.
So they have some experience. Anyone working with JP Russ would have some experience in installing stormwater.
Stormwater pipe repairs, anything like that.
They would have experience in installing stormwater, any type of construction, it's applicable. I mean, this is basic science.
But Susan, I have a question. This would be one individual. Would he have a crew, or do you use the existing?
That will have to be determined, once they get on, understand the plan, understand what is going on, because there are some distinct pieces of equipment that will be required in order to perform these duties. But we also plan to cost share with the Public Works Department, possibly individuals or equipment, when we can, or outsource it. But again, that's for someone to come in and develop that business plan for us. Because what we do know is that this gentleman here and his crew cannot do it in addition to all their other duties. That's an absolute.
But at the same time, this stormwater manager, field technician can't do it without the Department of Public Works assisting them along the line.
Or outsourcing.
Or outsourcing.
Who would you outsource this to, Susan, in this area?
You have several contractors around
There's several contractors
So
that
the
we.
contractors would dig out the holes, the ditches, and all
Yeah.
that?
Yes.
We currently do use several contractors in our larger projects that we've had related to stormwater and
That would go out to
infrastructure.
bid, correct?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. I've got no problem going with the plan.
Any other further discussion? Entertain a motion to adopt the stormwater management plan?
So move.
Any other further discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item on the agenda is the discussion and possible action concerning Main Street Sidewalk Project.
Yes, I know you received some information at the last meeting. I do again apologize for my absence. However, what we need from this council in order to submit for permits is an actual committed project and funding. We can't even submit a permit without a dedicated source of funding. You have sufficient funding. It was not you did not adopt it in the budget process. We're asking that you do it now so that we can go out to bid and issue, submit all the permits, get all the approvals from not only the North Carolina Department of Transportation, but CAMA and Army Corps of Engineers. That will take at a minimum 3 to 4 months. Then we are getting close to December. And in order for us to finish this project before Memorial Day, we need to start now.
Susan, isn't it true that an affirmative vote on this in moving forward still does not obligate us to build the sidewalks?
That is correct. I mean, you can pull the trigger at any point in time, but in order for us to even proceed, we need this financial commitment.
But until we give a thumbs up to move the next couple of steps, we won't know how much this is even going to cost.
We have, I know Michael has done a probable cost estimate.
I know, but until we get results of an RFQ, we do not know how much it will cost.
That is true. Until you complete the bid process, you will not have an actual. And in our bid documents, we state that we are not obligated to award to the lowest bidder or to any bidder.
So is there a cost involved in this next process that we go through?
Yes, the permits, there is a permit fee with everything that is required. And also the final design. But you've already contracted for the final design months ago.
Yes.
Right.
So the only additional cost to what we've already contracted
Permit.
is permit fees.
Permit and anything they require we don't know, you know, you never know until you have the scoping meeting or the pre-scoping meeting.
And staff time to put all
And
this together.
staff time, yes.
What kind of cost is these permits?
I don't know. I don't know, because it's project dependent.
Right, okay.
Any ballpark? We're talking about $1,000, we're talking about $50,000?
I'm looking at, Michael, can you come forward, please? You're not off the hook free. I just don't know I'm at the top. I mean, I could tell you what we paid for the park.
Yeah.
You need to get the mic, please.
And your permitting fees, some of that will vary depending on whether you wish to submit for express review permitting, depending on the time frame of.
Assuming no express.
Assuming no express.
What are the costs?
Your general stormwater permits are, I think, $505 stormwater fees. Your erosion control are a certain amount per acre, $65 an acre, I believe. The other fees that accompany getting that bid or anything that the town would have to be involved with in the bidding process for bidding award and publication of those informations and documents and production. So anything associated with that.
So as a general rule, our immediate costs are minimal right now. If we did what you're suggesting, my personal opinion is that this is, even with a grant, assuming that these bid estimates are somewhat in the ballpark, you know, we're still talking about $350,000 to put in this sidewalk. I'm looking at millions of dollars for stormwater, $1 million, including $1 million for equipment for stormwater. Charlie mentioned that we have $6 million. Well, we've got to hold on to most of that money in case we have a major hurricane and the town has to continue operating. So you can't say we've got that much money in the budget, just, you know, free money for all of these projects. And my personal opinion, after talking to a number of people, including the real estate agents on the island, I don't think a sidewalk is necessary. I know, Mark, you know, you keep thinking it's going to get more expensive in the future. Right now, this is not an expense I think the town should be taking on, considering all the other expenses that we know we're facing, which I think have a higher priority. So this is a situation where I'm prioritizing how we should be spending money. This is not where I want to spend money at this
What
point.
about spending money for the permit?
Now, I don't mind doing that, and there's going to be a new council coming in, and they could very well have a different opinion than I've got on this, and I recognize that. I'm happy to go ahead with these minimum amounts now, but know that I have a problem with spending the kind of money we're talking about on this project.
Susan has a point.
I think before we authorize to spend any money, we're going to have to prioritize what our projects are along with the associated cost and see how it impacts our reserves.
But we can't get those costs until they go ahead with some of these design
Like I said, the cost
things.
right now are minimal.
Yeah.
And I think we should proceed with the plan to get the permit so that we have an actual cost.
I fully agree with that.
Susan?
I need to have a financial commitment via a budget amendment in order to even submit the permits. You have to have a financial commitment to this project.
But you don't have to use it.
No, but I need to have that money
Understood.
in a capital ordinance that we will bring back forward at a budget
What
amendment.
happens if we decide not to proceed? How do we get that money back out from that special thing?
Transfer.
Okay. So we're really talking about paper things with the staff understanding that council has not yet voted on whether to actually proceed.
We would never proceed without your approval to move forward. We can't, because we can't award the contract without your permission.
I think Susan's been clear on the mechanics of all this. I think we all know what.
Yeah.
All right, do I have a motion?
I just to be clear, I think one of the important things in this process is while we do an approval of the plan in that is as it's been pointed out, there are a number of major financial commitments coming down over the next 5 to 10 years. And it would be very useful to have all of those sort of laid out in whether we call it a capital improvement plan or not, but just a projection so we can see what are all these costs, the fire department included, and those things, so that we, to the extent if we have a need to prioritize or delay or do anything, that we've got the facts in front of us that can help us make good decisions.
Yes, I would just go back to the CIP that you were giving during the budget process.
Right.
It's clearly highlighted in this document.
Right.
Okay.
All right, do I have a motion to,
Have to make a motion to approve this.
the
Oh, I
pot,
thought-
the
Application
permitting
fees
process?
and all that for the sidewalk.
The permitting process.
Well, you've
And-
already done that. What I need is for you to bring back, direct staff to bring back a budget amendment to show the financial commitment for this project.
That's the motion, right, Mark?
That's the motion.
Okay. Any other discussion? Not appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Against?
Nay. I don't think we're ready.
All right. The next item is consideration of the ordinance adoption for Article 10, Section 10.06, preservation of trees. Let me preface anything that anybody else says is that I read it. I was one of the instigators of some change in language. I'm satisfied with the language that I've seen.
I'm satisfied with it.
Me too. I think I'm just
Do you want me
making
to just go
sure I
back to
didn't.
my office?
Not until we're all satisfied.
Will you just look at page 4, however?
Okay.
Very, very last page on this. Number 5, any golf course operation may remove any tree on its property not deemed to be a heritage. It was just a little confusing.
I'm sorry, hang on, I'm still in the agenda packet for it.
The last
There we
page
go.
of it.
Yeah.
Number
Any golf
5,
course operation may remove
any golf course operation may, I know it says that later, but just to make it really clear, I would just add, may remove any tree on its property or on, you know, that it owns, not deemed to be a heritage tree, okay? Because when you continue, within 15 feet of any clearly identified and
Right.
functioning cart path on their own property. I was concerned that the cart path can be on their property, but the tree may not be, so I just wanted to make sure.
So for clarification for Lisa, for the actual ordinance, any golf course
Any
operation
golf
may
course
remove
on
any
its
tree
own property.
on its own property,
Yeah.
not deemed a heritage tree.
Any other discussion? Not appearing to have a motion?
Mayor, I want to make sure that I'm hearing what Carol just said. Hiram, on page 3, towards the top of the page, paragraph 5, heritage trees. Is this the same thing that Carol was getting at? What I'd like to see is on the second to the last line, right before the word canopy, have it planted on same property. In other words,
What page are you on?
I'm on
Page 3.
Page 3.
Agenda, okay, and where?
5, paragraph 5.
Towards
It's under
the
C5.
Got it.
C5, yes. Because I'd hate to see, or what I wouldn't agree to, is that they can cut a heritage tree down and then plant another heritage tree on another golf course outside of our town limits. So I'd like to see on C5, that right before the word canopy, that it says planted on same property.
Okay,
Now, tell me if I'm going down the wrong road here.
no, it still works, because even under the golf course part under 3, we refer back to 1006 C5 anyway, so
Okay.
that's not a problem. I mean, it's the same amendment we just made, so it's just clarifying again.
All right, well, I don't want to add duplicative words that don't resolve anything, but it's,
Believe me, when it comes to land use, it doesn't matter if we say the same thing in every sentence. Some people's not gonna read it if we don't, so.
So the bottom line for the golf courses is that we've loosened up their ability to remove any trees within, going from 10, now it's 15 feet of a cart path, and hopefully that will give them a little more flexibility.
That was a
Right.
request from a golf course.
But we put back in, you know, that they have to comply with that there's a limit to how many trees they can remove in any one year outside of that, because we were concerned, and there were some comments, good comments made at a recent meeting that said, what you don't want is for residents in an area to wake up one morning and find that all the trees have been removed from the golf course because they can. So I think this takes care of that,
It should.
okay? I move we adopt.
Carol, one more point.
Sure.
Hiram, to get your view without going into the meat and bones of this, a heritage tree survey prepared by a golf course, if they want to take down 25 trees, they still have to do a heritage tree survey. They don't have to get a permit, but they still have to do a heritage tree survey.
Yes.
Is that a heritage tree survey of the entire golf course, or is it just in the
The golf course
impacted
that they're
areas?
taking down, the impact, it's the golf course they're taking down on.
It's not just the holes that are in question, it is the entire golf course.
That's the way I would treat it, because it'd be no different than a developer, in my opinion, having to do the same thing for a
For an-
10-acre tract.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I was, because it depends on how I read this as to what that thought is.
I think that was the intent was definitely that, in my opinion. If that needs to be written out, that's fine too. I mean, that's up to y'all at this.
Because a
I'd
heritage
make
tree
that point
survey
right
on
now.
an entire golf course is significant. If they're just going in because there's one green that isn't getting enough ventilation and they want to take down trees there, we're telling them on one green, we're telling them they have to do, even if it's only 5 trees, they have to do a heritage tree survey on the entire 18 holes of the golf course. There could be thousands of trees involved in that.
And I think that's been the issue up to this point. But like I said, if we want to clarify that this would only be the affected area, that's language we can put in here too.
I had a question for you. And I talked to Susan about this a couple weeks ago.
Well, can we deal with this one point?
Oh, go ahead, I'm glad you're done.
Let's, well.
Well, what
I'm
language
saying
did you put
something-
in and where?
Well, this would go to E.
What page?
E2,
This
page
is
4.
page 4. This would go to E2, and it's the last line in E2 says a heritage tree survey shall be required. I'd like to see it say a heritage tree survey shall be required of the affected areas. Instead of, because that would read to me of the entire golf course, the way it's written now.
Mhm. And I think that'd be more than fine if the intent of updating this was to assist golf courses in preparation of the hurdles they had to go through to remove
So
trees.
I put it for any affected areas of the golf course.
Well, the heritage tree survey would still be required.
For any affected areas of the golf course. Or any areas of, or what?
Well, I like Hiram's wording better, which
What
said
was your wording?
of the affected area, or of the impacted area in question. It's where they're taking the trees down, that area needs to have a heritage tree survey, not the entire golf course.
That makes sense.
All right, with those changes.
Do you need to redraft language on that, or?
I mean, I think that we can
Well,
easily
all
add
he's
that
doing
now.
is adding words that clarify.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, with those
You know,
changes.
Bob, I have one question.
I'm sorry, Mark.
Hiram, you know, a couple of weeks ago, they took a tree down on North Shore East.
I didn't take the tree down.
I know.
Okay.
They did. And I got very upset at Susan about it because that tree was over 200 years old and they just chopped it down. We do have another existing tree in the old campground, that big oak tree in the back there on the, on, I guess, Canal. And, you know, I know, but we're talking about heritage trees. That's probably the biggest and the oldest tree on the island. Now, is there any way we could protect that tree even though it's in the middle of a lot?
Our current ordinances allow people to cut down heritage trees if it's in the buildable
Right.
area of their lot.
The tree in question,
That's the problem,
the one that was
I
on
know.
North Shore, they came in, got their zoning permit, they proved with the siding of the house that it was gonna be in the way. As I informed y'all back in June, when we issued that permit, they took down the tree. Any other tree, we'd have to treat the same way. We can't stop private property owners from removing trees on their property, especially pre-development, if it's gonna affect their ability to use that property and build on that property, something sufficient.
So that big tree in the old campground is going to be destroyed.
When you say old campground, I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Between Cobia, 16th Street, and south of.
Oh, Majestic Oak? Yeah, it's my understanding that tree has its own parcel. And I think something in the deeds over there prevent it from being cut down. I'm not entirely sure on that.
Can you follow up on that for me and just come
All
back?
right, so what I'm
look into it. I don't know
hearing
where to look yet, but I'll look
is
into it.
whether or not there's any interest among council, and I suspect legally we couldn't do it even if we wanted to, that where you have private individual lots, people are allowed to erect houses in a buildable area of their lot according to town ordinances, and if there is a heritage tree in the middle of that area, they have every right to take that down. do we want to change? What I'm hearing you saying is, do we want to look at that policy? And I don't know how in heaven's name we would ever come up with something that says, no, you can't build.
In my opinion, that'd be a Grady question, because it's my understanding that under land use law in North Carolina and the way I've been taught and the way I've always done it, if you're going to prevent someone from doing something on their property for something like that, that's a taking.
Yes.
And it's either buy the property or have your entire land use plan thrown out the window.
Does that answer your question?
All right, anything else with regard to the golf courses?
I don't know if you want to.
Does this have to do with golf courses? Does it have to do with golf courses?
Or heritage trees.
Well, come up
Well-
after,
Well, no, the only thing we're dealing with now is as applies to golf courses.
After.
Okay. Any other discussion with regard to this ordinance?
No, I move we adopt the ordinance to amend Article 10, landscaping and plant materials, as listed in agenda item 5C, with the 3 changes that we have given to you.
5E.
5E.
All those in favor?
I'm sorry,
All
it
those,
is 5E, my glass.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you very much.
The next item is new business, consideration of authorization of the police department mutual aid agreements. Does anybody have any question with regard to it? My understanding is the sole necessity for this is we have a different chief of police.
No, it's all housekeeping.
I have a motion.
So moved.
Any other discussion? Not appearing, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The next item is discussion concerning fire station 1 roof and wall survey.
Wake up, Kevin. Do you need a roof?
You got the report?
No, do you need any roof at all?
Right.
Kevin, can I just ask a couple of questions? Did we only receive one bid?
We haven't received a
We
bid.
haven't got a bid yet.
Those are just
This was
engineering.
We have a
Survey.
We
This
have
is-
an estimate.
We have an estimate
Mm-hmm.
between 125 to 155,000, is that correct?
And that's just for roof repairs alone, period.
Not
That's-
replacing.
What is it not including?
It's not including all the things we're gonna have to fix that have been damaged by water that's already leaked inside the building. Sheet rock, carpet, I mean, we've got some
So
damage.
what are those costs?
We have no idea how much those are gonna cost. I'm not a drywall guy. I'm not gonna be a carpet guy. I can't tell you what those costs are gonna be. I just know there was no sense in fixing them till the roof stops leaking.
Correct.
So we've got to fix that after the roof is done. And we do have some minor, I wouldn't call it minor. One room is gonna have to probably have an entire wall taken down. So when you look at the cost of what the roof, that's the cost of fixing the roof right there. Then you got the cost of fixing the interior, where we've had damage
But
inside.
that cost resolves the roof.
Well, hold it, that does not, it may resolve the roof. And if you read all the ifs, ands, buts, ors, and nors, and disclaimers that are in Terracon's report, we're gonna be spending, even as an estimate, somewhere between 125,000 and 350,000, or whatever that other number would be to replace the roof. They gave us 2 numbers. And as they mine into it, as they start removing capping, caulking, flashing, that's when other things may or may not come to light. We may have a beautiful substructure there, but I wouldn't take it to the bank.
As I see it, the decision is, as stated in the report, the work that they say is necessary is between 125 to 150. As a comparison, the cost estimate for roof replacement and remedial repairs to be 325 to 350.
So Bob, can I have a
That's the
question?
decision, isn't it?
So what's the decision take? Find out how we're gonna fund this and make this, and get this one,
Are we
money
gonna,
available?
Susan, it's to go out, whether we're gonna go out for a bid for the
Yes.
repairs.
We're asking permission to go out for a bid to repair the roof.
And we can make a determination after we get that, where that money is going to come from. Because my inclination is to say, since They've raised fire fees after we've already instituted our budget for this coming year. Without taking into consideration the increase in the fire fees, this is a perfect project to be paid for out of that increase in fire fees.
Well, we would like to go forward with the bid, and then we can figure out if you want it to be paid by fire fees, because that's simply moving money between accounts.
But it's
So all
still
we're
like
asking
to
for
see-
right now is just a
Go out for
motion to
bid.
go out to bid.
To go out to bid to
motion to go out
repair
to bid.
the roof.
Any other discussion? None appearing. All those in favor?
We have to have more than one bid.
Yeah, we're going out for public bid. We're going to get as many bids
Hey,
as we
Mark,
get.
all of our bids are competitive and open and published.
But
Oh,
we've had some bids in the past, where only one person's bid on that project.
Well, then we can reject it. We
Well, we
have that, we have that right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the joint council special, planning board special meeting for 8/31 at 10 a.m. For presentation to North Carolina Coastal Federation regarding stormwater practices and policies. Anybody have any questions?
Hiram, thank you very much. This should be very helpful.
Well, the credit should go to the planning board. They're the ones who wanted this set up and did the, kind of made them do the legwork. Because then when I was trying to do it, we couldn't find out a date, and then trying to configure everybody, so the planning board really pushed this one together.
All right, do we need to take formal action to set the meeting? All right.
Because it'll be a
We have
special.
to have
Special
a-
meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry. We set a special meeting for 10 o'clock on August 31st for the sole purpose of the presentation.
Right.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item is review upcoming agenda items, identify new agenda items for the September 5 meeting. We have
You're gonna add park rules.
we have the minimum housing unsafe building ordinance. We have consideration of minimum housing unsafe building ordinance. We have consideration of the adoption of the ordinance for building codes. We have the discussion concerning how fire system fees and any flexibility concerning fire fees and the fire department personnel needs. And we
We've
have,
moved this,
yeah, we
We have the riptide density.
we've moved the density issue to 9.5, and park rules keep on 9.5.
that's 6 items.
You also-
Seven.
You also have the budget amendment.
Mr. Mayor, if I could add, I sent you all a memo regarding conflict of interest to start that conversation.
Okay.
What if we don't think it needs to be on the agenda?
Pardon me?
Well, anybody can request.
Anybody can
any
put it,
council
all
can
right.
request anything on
Just
the
want to make
agenda.
sure. All right.
Mayor, is that true?
Yeah,
Can any council member put anything on any agenda?
Let me tell you, I got the rules here.
I would think the rest of council has to agree to that.
No, you do. You place it on there, but then you adopt the agenda at the meeting, before the meeting starts.
I think that's what was not clear. It used to be that you had to have at least 2 people agreeing, but that made it really tough depending on what the issue was. Somebody may want something aired,
Well,
even though there's no support for it.
It prevents
and that
council
becomes
people
difficult.
from bringing the same topic up each and every meeting.
The same topic, that's another issue, yeah.
Well, that's,
Yeah, I hear you.
What
But I
the
remember not being able to get something on that needed to be on.
What the
because I had
council
4
rules,
people saying no.
what the council rules of procedure say is, any council member may, by a timely request, have an item placed on the proposed agenda up to and including the point that a draft agenda is accepted at the meeting. A copy of all proposed ordinances shall be attached to the proposed agenda. An agenda package be prepared. Each council member shall receive a copy and then they vote. So it says, any council member may, by a timely request, have an item placed on the proposed agenda, up to and including the point of draft agenda is accepted. Okay, so we have, in addition to those that are printed there, we have the riptide, we have the park rules, and we have conflict as requested by Mr. Serrato. Anything else?
I have a question, and it has to do with the paving of North Shore and Cobia. That, I thought, we were moving forward a couple of months ago, or at least a month ago on that. Are- Okay, any bids come in, what stage? are
We're
we-
not even there yet, and if you want to come up, we had to go out and do survey work in order to submit the permits, because it will involve CAMA and the Army
Yes.
Corps of Engineer. That's where we are right now.
All right, so it's in progress, in
Yeah.
process. Okay.
With the surveyor, they're trying to get all the utilities located, so we know where they're at, so when they put it out for bids, everybody know where. That's the holdup right now. is that.
Once it goes out for bid, do the participants that'll be paying for this, do they have a chance to say, we didn't think it was going to be that expensive, and vote no? Or have they already voted?
Yeah, there would be a public, there's an opportunity for
There will be a
public
public
input.
hearing, and that's when that would be clear.
Do
But
you
50%
agree, Susan?
I'd like to review the statutory language before I respond.
Because they've all signed a petition saying yes.
But there is a public hearing, and we certainly have the opportunity to list, if you had, you know, the 50 people who signed come in and say, no, it's too expensive, we don't want to do it.
So they
I
don't-
would hope we would honor that
So they don't
request.
get another vote, but we do.
Yes.
We get a vote.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we
All
get a
right.
vote.
Okay.
Okay, but they don't have to have a
Thanks, Dustin.
50% vote?
No, they
plus
don't. No.
To approve the actual cost of the
Basically, what my understanding of the statute is, 51% of the people have said, we want this paved, we want council to look at it and make a decision to pave it, and then the council has to make that decision.
But at that point.
We can be their voice at that point.
Exactly, and I
Yeah.
think we owe them the right to be heard and hear what they say once those amounts come in.
They're not asking us to do it as a blank check.
Yeah.
Anything else? Entertain a motion to adjourn?
Wait a minute, comments
Wait,
at the end of the meeting.
I'm sorry. I was trying to avoid that.
Damn.
Now is the opportunity for public comment. Ms. Harris?
Sorry, Jan.
About Jan Harris, 206 North Shore Drive. About the large oak tree on the island, if you look at the plat, that area was replatted several years ago, and there's a plan for a road to go in that parallels North Shore Drive East. Though there are lots platted on that road, I can't remember the name of that road.
Majestic.
But the area where the tree is on a separate, is in its own separate parcel there, and there's no right-of-way to that from that road. There's no way to get to that. In other words, somebody will be buying a piece of property,
mean
and
the
I don't
pro-
even know if it's for sale, but right now, that tree is safe. But you might want to make some rules, because people can always replat.
What you're saying is, as of now, it's landlocked.
As of now, it's,
Landlocked.
yes. As of now.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? Mr. Nern?
Charlie Nern, 647 Worcester Bay Drive. I just want to clear one thing up. I do know that a lot of the money, a lot of the 6 million the town has a lot of it's in reserve. And I just want to. Yes. By law, we have to have a certain percentage in reserve.
It's not really a law, it's a
Yeah.
suggestion.
Recommendation.
All right, well, I know that the town has over 100% of what would be the recommended amount.
Say that again, Charlie.
The amount, the recommended amount for reserves, I forget the percentage.
75%.
75, okay. And the town has over 100%?
That's correct.
Okay. I don't want to just go spend, take $6 million and go spend it.
No, absolutely. No, you're absolutely right.
Thank you.
It's got to be prioritized.
Other public comment?
I don't think I need to come up. Ruth Reynolds, North Shore Drive. Mr. Mayor, this is for you. On August 31st, the special meeting that's going to be held, didn't get a time on that.
10.
10 a.m. Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Any other public comments? None appearing, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.